there, I'm Sandy Allnock with the September issue of Create in Color, and I'm going to be using sweater weather in the woods because I love sweater weather. A lot of people are going to be sad to see summer go, but not me. It's too hot for me. This whole global warming thing is making me nuts. I don't want it to get warmer. I want it to get cooler so I can wear sweaters too. And I'm showing you the masking in the Misty. I just took some still pictures as I went, building up the image from the front to the back and just masking out the ones that are in the front so the ones in the back then appear like they are behind the images in the front. This little guy in the very, very front, the beaver, his paws end up looking like they're behind the mug, but instead of worrying about that, I just colored dark paws on top of the mug, on top of the little coffee cup instead. It seemed a lot easier than figuring out how to do masking to put that cup in between his hands and his face, because that was just too much math for me to work out. So I just went the easy way, and you did a pen little trick with that. And I love being an artist so that we can do things like that and make it easier on ourselves rather than having to figure out crazy, ridiculous masking. For each one of these, I'm going to be using 2-color blending. And don't let anyone tell you that you have to use 3 colors in order to get a good blend. These images are really small, and when they're really small and they have lots of little bits and parts, unless you super need all of that super contrast going from really light to really darks, you don't really need to go for 3 colors all the time. And on this particular image, all 3 of these little guys did not really require that. Just make sure that when you choose a dark color, don't go as dark as you would if you used 3 colors. So instead of using like the R89 for my dark color on that sweater, I went a little bit lighter than that. And that makes for less contrast between the image, between the shadow and the highlight, but it doesn't really matter on an image like this because I planned this whole scene around it. And that's really what I did this for, because I was excited to make a little coffee house for them, to make them stand in a Starbucks, and show you how to do that one. The bear, I chose to make a black bear with a brown snout because I used to live in Montana where we had black bears all the time, and I kind of figure polar bears would not be wearing sweaters because they like the cold weather. That's where they live. That's their habitat. A black bear likes to be out during summertime, so he might actually want to have a little mug of something toasty and warm, and he might want to wear a little warm sweater. And I know that is all kinds of crazy logic that I'm using here, but sometimes you have to just do that because that's the way my mind works. This is a little moose. I'll tell you a little moose story. When I lived in Montana, I went hiking with my dog one time. I had a German Shepherd at the time. And my dog loved to run ahead and come back and run ahead and come back. And there was one time she ran ahead of me, and on her way back, she came flying around a corner with her ears pinned back. She was running her little feet as fast as she could, and there was a female moose chasing her. At first, I thought it was a horse, and I couldn't figure out why a horse would be chasing my dog with its head down until I realized it was a moose. She just didn't have the antlers because she was a girl. And I had a choice. Do I save myself? Do I save my dog? Do I figure out how to save both? And I decided to save my dog and hope that that meant I would also be saved. And I bent down in front of the dog as she was running pell-mell toward me. This was all in split seconds. Grabbed her as she kind of came right up to me and threw both of us backwards. And I did not look at what was on the other side, so we went tumbling down a ravine into a river. So it was quite the exciting adventure, and I did not take her on that trail anymore because I hadn't ever seen wild animals there, and seeing that moose was like the first time. So there you go, my crazy moose story. Alrighty, so now for the coffee shop. I'm trying to figure out how to make it simple. I tried not to make this one super complex with a lot of detail. So make a band of some sort for the case full of goodies. And I just put a little bit of gray in it, and I've left gray on the top and the bottom for now, just as a marker. I wanted to have the sentiment on a chalkboard in the background. So I placed my sentiment where I wanted it, knowing that part of it was going to go behind the antler. and just kind of drew a rough rectangle around it. And when I draw scenes, I don't measure anything. I don't get rulers out. I don't worry about being super straight because I'm going to be putting enough color there and enough little fun detail. Nobody's going to notice or care if everything is absolutely perfectly straight and lined up and all that. So you can also just add lots of dark color around it, so nobody's going to be able to even see the difference on some of those details. So I've thrown a wooden wall behind all of that, and then I decided to do a Starbucks I was in recently had this kind of red tile floor with these really big squares. I thought that would be easy. So I used a reddish brown and then just added some lines going out from the middle, and that gives you the sense of depth, and then horizontal lines that give you the horizontalness of the floor. And then I darkened the wall in the back and left a little tiny bit of frame around each one of those chalkboards, and started realizing they were probably too bright, and I could even make the chalkboard darker. There's a lot of little tweaks that you can do on something like this, but I wanted to show you that you can make a really cute card even without going into a lot of that kind of heavy detail. The little boxes on top, I just left some little squares when I did that background so that I could put things on the counter. It doesn't matter what they are. I didn't draw cupcakes or little racks of anything. I just threw in some little blocks of color. It gives the impression that there's something there while not having to draw a whole lot in there. I wanted the floor to be a little more muted because my lines weren't all that straight, and decided to throw in some shadows underneath of their feet and then just color over the thing a couple of layers to just soften those lines a bit. I'm going to trim the paper down anyway, so a lot of that may end up disappearing, you never know. And then for the inside of the case, I just took a really light pen and made some little flick marks so it looked like there were things in a row, and went over it with a colorless blender and kept that really kind of pretty straightforward and simple. Next up is another layer I decided on the chalkboard because I wanted that to be a little bit darker. You could continue to make lots of layers, add lots more details to things, put some candy in jars on the counter, all kinds of fancy things. And that is really fun to do, but make sure that it doesn't steal from the main image. I want the little characters to be the main thing and the background to just give them a setting. So I'm going to stamp the sentiment now onto the chalkboard, but I want to make sure that it doesn't cover up or stamp in front of the little antler. I'm going to show you a little trick for what I did with that with the embossing. I went through all of the normal steps using the powder tool, putting the Versamark ink, and then shaking on the powder. But when it came time to trying to heat set it, before I did that, I took a tiny brush and flicked off any of the parts of the white powder that were in front of the antler. And then it looks like the text is behind it. Worked out really cool. All right, the last step I wanted to do on this one, and this will make the whole sentiment on the board seem a little bit more normal, and that is adding a lot of little doodly bits onto the boards. And I don't know about your Starbucks, but mine has some words that are really big, but a lot of them that are really small. My old eyeballs even have to sort of squint a little bit to see them. So let yourself just make some little squiggly doodles in some of the areas. You can put a few items really big, and I decided to put more items all the way around the sentiment itself, and I'm just scribbling. I'm putting little dots in there, just using a white pen to do it. If you don't have a white pen, use a white pencil. Works just fine to do that and won't be as bright as a white gel pen, but you know, it'll still be just dandy. If you make things look like they're a little list with a heavier doodle at the end, then it'll make it look like there's prices and stuff. And it just fills out the scene with a little bit of detail that doesn't get somebody so lost in it that their eye is taken there. They're still going to be looking at your main characters on the card. So just drop a little TLC into your card, and you can skip all those embellishments. Just put some color paper layers underneath of it, and it ends up being a nice flat card that goes well through the mail, which if you send out as many cards as I do every holiday season, it gets expensive. Alrighty, I will see you guys again next month. Have a great one. Enjoy this new release from MFT. It's a whole lot of fun. And I'll see you again another time. Bye-bye.